Hey everybody, and welcome to Stock Abilities. I'm going to be covering the skinny bill vote is coming basically into Wednesday here, and pretty much this is what Trump said very recently as of
Well,
October
I want the
18th.
money by tonight, but Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it because she thinks it's good politically for her not to approve it. And if you look at our numbers nationwide, they've been incredible. You know, we're on a very strong V. The job numbers were up to 11.4 million. It's a record over the last number of months. We're doing, from an economic standpoint, and next year we're going to announce third quarter numbers. I think they're going to be phenomenal, by the way. I think you're going to have perhaps over 25% GDP. Our unemployment numbers, and if you look at the number of people being hired, but Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she wants to bail out poorly run Democrat states. And
Whether all that's true or not, the short answer is that they did try to pass a skinny bill not too long back. McConnell was kind of leading the charge on that one. Republicans, it was about a 53 to 54 vote. Democrats, I'm not entirely sure what the vote was, but the reason that it didn't pass is because of the Democrats refusing to pass the skinny bill then. This skinny bill is a little bit more updated, and considering how close it is to elections, they're trying to pass something for the American people. They're trying to get something to come across here. This new bill includes a variety of different things, but the most important one for a lot of Americans at least is the 1,200 stimulus check, which seems to be staying about the same value. It's unclear what the details of that's going to be in regards to income levels and things like that. But they're going to be voting on it as soon as a Wednesday coming up here this week, and we're going to see how that shakes out. Essentially, it'll expand federal unemployment benefits, replenish the Paycheck Protection Program, provide over 100 billion to schools, and fund vaccine production as well as testing and tracing. And then McConnell said that barring any obstruction from Democrats, the Senate would vote on the measure before turning to vote on Judge Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation of the Supreme Court. A lot of people were, posting that this was, a scenario where it's not likely to pass, but it seems that Pelosi's a little bit more open to it now than she was, weeks, months back, however long it's been. And this one does include the stimulus, that actual check there too. Just a little bit of a breakdown here, basically. Fund unemployment, entire second round of the Paycheck Protection Program, 100 billion to make schools safe, more testing, more tracing, more funding for Operation Speed to produce a vaccine, more funding to distribute that vaccine across the country. They had mentioned before the stimulus check things. I still believe that's a part of this one here. They're also doing another one coming up here on Tuesday for the PPP loans, things like that. So they're likely going to be trying to pass two different bills just as a clarity here. So you have Tuesday for the PPP related funding type of bill. Then you have another one for all this stuff here onto Wednesday. So far, there hasn't been any opposition over the weekend. It's been a very, positive uplook coming in. What McConnell also mentioned is that this isn't a cure-all, whatever. They're trying to pass something essentially for the American people at the moment. They're going to be trying to pass this here coming into the next week, but the larger bill, the thicker bill, that fat cat bill, that where the Republicans and Democrats get a little bit more meat out of it, essentially, isn't going to be passed until probably January, February. Pelosi was saying January is when she feels that there might be some updates on that. McConnell says that, it's almost impossible to pass a bill that large right before elections. So the likely outcome is they're going to pass some variation of a skinny bill. There'll probably be, stimulus checks coming in the mail kind of thing. This is the standard thing from the last time. But the process should be a little bit quicker as long as you have everything up to date. If as long as you basically have essentially all your direct deposits set up and everything from before, they still have the system set up from the prior round of stimulus checks. So if they pass it on a vote and Trump signs it that same week, we could be seeing stimulus checks by the end of the month. Relatively speaking, is that a realistic scenario? Yes and no. We'll see how that shakes out. Essentially, Pelosi, as of this week, literally over the weekend, she says she's optimistic because again we've been back and forth all this. Pelosi said in an interview, however, with her negotiating partner Steve Mnuchin in the Middle East, deal appears to be a long shot, but they still they're optimistic that a bigger, larger, or some variation of a deal is going to pass between now and early next year. The one that matters to most people, though, is the stimulus check and the PPP business loan related stuff. The bigger bill is better for stock market stuff. The bigger bill is better for airlines and defense companies and things like that. Even with the PPP portion bill passing on Tuesday, I feel that'll have more of an impact on the stock market, particularly than the one that they're trying to pass on Wednesday. But they both benefit things like biotech. They both benefit things like loans and forgiveness and debt related stuff for the airlines, for defense companies, for all these different companies that are kind of struggling, so to speak, in that regard. But we'll see how that kind of shakes out here. Essentially, that they're arguing over the testing and the tracing. Other thing that Pelosi mentioned, and of course others sort of mentioned, is that it's kind of a deadline here in the next 24 hours, at least if they want to pass something before the elections coming up here in November. Pelosi says it's like a 48-hour stimulus deadline, which is kind of true. I mean, they need to They need to be somewhat in agreement before the votes on Tuesday and Wednesday. If they shake that agreement out between Sunday and Monday, we're going to see, a potential vote on Tuesday, Wednesday. So as long as that vote doesn't get delayed, so Monday is a very important day to look out for. Assuming, barring that Pelosi agrees to this and everything like that, it's going to look out positively for that smaller term package there. That's going to benefit you as an individual. It's going to benefit the American people as a whole. Essentially, they're not really confident that any kind of bigger bill is going to get pushed to the Senate. McConnell once at some point here, I think it was last week, stated that he simply will not push a bigger bill this year, at least, because he doesn't feel that his Senate will actually pass that bill. He's sort of for the bigger bill, but he just doesn't see enough confidence from his the whole Senate there to actually pass a larger bill this year. This is direct statements from what he said. How that'll shake out, I guess we'll find out here in the next week. Once again, Tuesday vote on a standalone bill that would authorize the use of $135 billion in leftover paycheck protection funds, and a Wednesday vote on a $500 billion package that would include more supplemental federal employment benefits, more funding for schools, more funding for testing, tracing, and vaccine production. Democrats and Republicans are all sort of fighting over the amounts, but they do want to pass something. They're just not sure what amount will be ideal for themselves. So they're in agreement for the bill itself. They're fighting over the actual amounts that should be distributed and to which areas are more important than the other ones. It's a lot of political back and forth. She's been pushing this back and forth with Nugent for months now. They did pass a bill earlier this year for some of that stimulus benefit. They're trying to pass some more because, airlines and a lot of these other places might actually, I don't think airlines will go out of business, but, smaller businesses that can't handle this brunt, that don't have that cash on hand to benefit, are going to struggle a whole lot. Now, something to consider coming into, the stock market here next week, that we might be seeing basically up and down with the bill volatility and things like that. But then we have the let's say the thicker earnings here for tech coming up. You have Facebook and Amazon and all that. But then you also have the airlines and the defense companies coming up reporting as well. Well, mostly defense companies. I think there's a few more airlines, but the defense companies being that they haven't reported since last quarter. So it's going to give a very good idea of the volatility of the market coming into this next week. I personally think that we're going to see a little bit of a volatility down on Monday, but then a continued up into the weeks upcoming into the election year this year, the elections here coming up in, I think it's November 3rd, November 4th range, somewhere in that time frame, that we'll see more of an upward volatility. But then I think we're going to have a little bit of a slam down after. Yeah, I don't think tech earnings are going to be all that great because a lot of them are probably going to price in something to some degree with, pandemic might be ending, so on and so forth. So all those companies that kind of ran up for the pandemic scenario are probably going to get crushed into November, late November, December, so on and so forth. Feel free to leave in the comments below your own input on what you feel about the bill, how optimistic you are that Pelosi might finally agree to something. From last I checked, Mnuchin for sure is in agreement. McConnell is for sure in agreement. The most of the Republican side are in agreement. Most of the Democrat side are in agreement. It seems that Pelosi, as Trump pointed out, does seem to be the one that's delaying all of this from actually processing and going through to a certain point that actually turns in an agreement into a deal and passes it and helps benefit these businesses that are struggling. But I guess we'll see how it all shakes out, guys. But thanks for listening in, and have a great day, guys. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and I'll see you later on.